Standing, we haven't quite figured out what to do about the shortage of seats, but we're working on it. There are some empty seats up front. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, just one more minute. There's still some folks in the hall. Tonight's scoping session. I'm the Chief Attorney for the Thruway Authority's Environmental Division. With me tonight is Mr. John Baniak, the Authority's Director of Operations, and next to him Mr. Larry Woods, an Environmental Specialist with the Authority's consultant for this project. Mr. Baniak will explain why our patrons need a service area somewhere on the Berkshire Spur. Mr. Woods will recapitulate the preliminary planning that has led us presently to focus on a particular site. Mr. Woods will also describe the size and shape of the project as we presently conceive these to be. It's Clough Harbor and Associates. You'll note I'm choosing my words very carefully. I'm saying preliminary planning, focus site, project size and shape as presently conceived. This tentativeness is not accidental and it is not rhetoric. It is legally required. No final decisions can be made concerning location, size, and form of this project until these issues have been thoroughly assessed according to the strictures of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQRA for short. But you have to start somewhere. SEQRA permits preliminary planning to progress to the point we have reached tonight, formulation of a definite project proposed for a definite site. What you will see presented tonight, what many of you have already reviewed in these conceptual drawings, both site and building, are subject to change as a function of the environmental information generated by the SEQRA process. The heart of this process is the Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS. The Authority is committed to completing the full EIS process for this project. One of the reasons for this commitment is tonight's turnout. We are well aware that this proposal has stirred controversy. Public concern is a strong reason for doing an EIS, because the EIS process provides a forum for this concern to be aired and a means for public comment to be factored into decision-making. The EIS process guarantees comprehensive review of a project's adverse environmental effects, consideration of less intrusive alternatives to the proposed action, and consideration of mitigation measures. The EIS process also requires that the draft and final EIS be made available to the public with sufficient lead time to afford concerned citizens an opportunity for informed comment. The EIS process commences tonight with scoping. The purpose of scoping, what we're going to attempt to do here tonight, is to identify the most relevant environmental issues the EIS should analyze. That is, the likely impacts on critical resources such as air and water and human eyeballs and eardrums, the range of reasonable alternatives, and potential areas for mitigation. In short, we are here tonight to listen, to get feedback from the people who live here regarding the issues you think a comprehensive EIS should address. We are not here to debate because polemic subverts information gathering. Nor are we here to answer questions. Beyond what Messrs. Baniak and Woods are about to tell you, we do not at present have any answers. The materials distributed at the door are intended to give you the basic data about the proposed project and to help you focus on relevant issues. The information we gather here tonight will be used to refine the draft scoping document you have in hand into a final scoping document. The final scoping document is a public document. This final scope will serve as the basis for creation of a draft EIS. The draft EIS is a public document, available for 30 days or if necessary longer for public review and comment. The public comments will be responded to. Both comments and responses will form part of the final draft of the EIS. All final determinations concerning this project must be firmly based on the information and analysis, including public comments, in the final EIS. Very quickly, some ground rules. There are a lot of people here. In the interest of getting home tonight, I'm going to try to hold speakers to around 3 minutes each. All comments are being taped. Written material should be handed up. If you belong to a group, I urge you to select a representative speaker. Representative speakers who identify themselves as such can have more time if needed, so long as the other members of the group agree to rely solely on the representative. Even if you're not formally affiliated with another speaker, if a previous speaker has said pretty much what you intended to say, please try to let that suffice. Mr. Mann?
Good evening. I want to welcome you all. My role here tonight is primarily to begin the process of providing some information. My own job within the authority deals with operational and programmatic issues, not with engineering ones, and that's why we've split up this presentation into two components. I'm going to talk more about programmatic issues and at least what we're trying to accomplish through not only this particular site, which has been focused on, but really throughout the thruway system. I want to emphasize what Barry said. This is very, very preliminary. This is one of the very early stages of a process of trying to make a decision about where or even if to build a new service area. I hope that we can give you some information that will be helpful to you. A little bit of background and framework. Currently, the Thruway has about 27 service areas along the entire length of the system. And for those of you that haven't been to any of our service areas lately, as you may not be aware, we've embarked on a major program of reconstruction and rehabilitation of all of our service areas to better meet our customers' needs. Part of the rationale for that, the reasons for why we need to do this is the old buildings were built in the 50s and early 60s. They are well worn. The physical infrastructure has deteriorated to some extent. We are trying to increase the number of choices to our customers in terms of providing them branded food concepts, reasonable choices at facilities, and just overall improvement in the quality of what we provide them. In addition to that, one of the focuses on our reconstruction program, and one of the things that we're trying to do as part of a programmatic effort we've undertaken with the Department of Economic Development and with the state in general, is to totally upgrade our tourism information centers throughout the state, and in fact add a lot of new ones where we didn't operate them before. What we've done is we've come up with a plan for a total of about 18 staffed information centers. Some of them operated on a seasonal basis, but some of them operated on a year-round basis, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. And finally, one of the reasons for the reconstruction program is a tremendous amount of customer dissatisfaction and complaints concerning the services that were out there before. Basically, in terms of the overall program, I think you see on some of the charts displayed tonight what we're trying to achieve with the restaurant reconstruction program. One being to build facilities that New York can be proud of, that reflect the architecture of New York State. They're kind of a combination I've heard described of a Adirondack Great Camp and railroad station. We've obviously tried to improve the food quality, the food services, by introducing concepts that people are familiar with no matter where they're traveling, familiar brands. We've tried to increase the standards of performance by our contractors, and in general, totally improve the facilities. We've also had to, as a part of that program, really upgrade things like the sewage treatment plants, the parking facilities, all of the services and all of the infrastructure that relates to that, to really bring it up to today's standards so that it could meet all the environmental standards that exist today as compared to the 1950s. As I mentioned earlier, the tourism information centers are a major focus. We've basically broken them down into three types: those that focus on regional tourism-related activities, those that are more statewide in focus, and the final and the most significant type of tourism center that we're trying to establish are what are called gateway services. This is something that we've discussed with the Department of Economic Development, and what we're proposing on this site would be one of our gateway information centers. Let me skip a little bit past the general reconstruction project and talk a little bit in terms of this proposal for a service area on the Berkshire. It's really one of two that we have considered to be desirable for the last several years, both of them being in what we call gateway locations. And what I mean by that are locations that serve as primary entrance points to New York State for tourists and out-of-state travelers. The two that we've identified are this one on the Berkshire Spur as being desirable, and also one near the Pennsylvania border in the western part of the state. And most of you are probably unfamiliar with that. And part of the reason for that is, first of all, spacing. Traditionally, our service areas now are spaced approximately every 30 miles. And what we have on the Berkshire Spur and on the entrance from Pennsylvania is spacing that goes far beyond that. For example, if you're traveling from Massachusetts to New York and you're headed westbound, if you're going to the west, the first service area is not for about 87 miles from the last service area on the Massachusetts Turnpike at our facility in Pattersonville. And if you're heading south, the first service area is in what's called New Baltimore, and that's about 60 miles from the previous service area in Massachusetts. Similarly, from the Pennsylvania gateway, we have a stretch of about 60 miles from the Pennsylvania state line to a service area that we call Angola, which is the first one now as you come into New York. And we're also considering a similar kind of facility at that gateway site. And so we're going through the same environmental process there. So one rationale for needing a service area is one of spacing. A second one that really applies to this site more so, in fact does not apply to the Pennsylvania borderline site, is one of, there used to be pre-existing services here. Actually, there were two service areas. Most of you probably can remember that, one called Rensselaer and one called Columbia. And at the point where the I-90 extension was built, basically the traffic counts there changed so that the business was not viable any longer, and those had to be closed down. So to some extent, we're trying to replace the service that existed, but in a new location where it can better serve the public. In terms of the gateway system that I mentioned to you, we see the Berkshire Spur and obviously the Massachusetts entrance to the state as a major focus for tourism. We believe that we have a responsibility to assist in promoting not New York State in general, but as well as that promoting the region. We think that that will have a significant impact on tourism attractions and really what I would call tourist-related services that are along our system, including, I think, enhancing opportunities for hotels and other services to do more business along our system. That's happened in other places where we've established. There's one other point that I think is somewhat significant, and probably more significant here even than it is in at the Pennsylvania line. And that is, we experience now a lot of questions at our toll facility, particularly at B1, where people are very confused, particularly out-of-state travelers, because of the split between I-87 and I-90. They wind up getting off at B1 because they see the signs for I-90 and realize they've gotten off the thruway and they're not so sure that that's what they wanted to do. And so we're looking to put a facility prior to that will attract the out-of-state travelers and provide them a lot of information regarding attractions and where they're going. That, I think, at least gives you a framework for the program that we're working on. In terms of the specific facility or the services that we were talking about putting in a facility along the Berkshire Spur and as well at the Pennsylvania border. What we're talking about is a two-concept food facility, certainly McDonald's, since they're the primary contractor. And there's another concept that's proven very successful at one of our other service areas in Guilderland. It's a brand called Everything Yogurt and Salad Cafe. It's kind of a healthy food style, salads and broiled foods and things like that as an alternative to McDonald's. In addition, as I mentioned, we talked about the Gateway Information Center. Those tend to be in the 900 to 1,000 square feet. They're major centers. They're staffed throughout the year, not just seasonally, to provide tourism information. Also, we're talking about a fairly typical service area with a gift shop. In particular, in this facility, conceptually at least, we've talked about the possibility of doing something in addition to the tourism center in the way of, right now, I think it's labeled an audio-visual orientation center. But what we are talking about there is the possibility of doing something that would allow the display of historical pieces or arts and crafts or things that pertain to this region in particular, if there were interest in doing that. There are two other things that, services that we would love to see, but it's not in the preliminary plans and we really have no idea of what interest there would be. We know at the Pennsylvania border there's a considerable amount of interest in two things. One, farmers markets. We would like to do more of those along the system. We've been approached by the Department of Agriculture and Markets to see if we could develop more farmers markets along our system. We have a pretty successful one at New Baltimore, which is just a little bit south of here. That is something that if there were interest in it, we would certainly be interested in pursuing it. But if there is no interest, we would not want to do that. Another issue that comes up at a lot of our, as we're reconstructing some of these facilities, is whether or not there is interest in local access. We do not provide local access unless it is specifically requested by the community. As a practical matter, as a matter of fact, as I indicated, we were going through this process near the Pennsylvania border, and at that facility, we've actually been requested by the locality to provide public access. They desire it. I see from the look on some of your faces that that may not be desirable to you. Let me just quickly summarize a couple of things. One is, as Barry indicated, this is a very, very preliminary stage in the process. And I must tell you that while we have a, quote, focus site that we would like to look at, there are other sites that Larry Woods will discuss with you that we've at least preliminarily looked at. And we really wind up at the end of this entire process with a number of options. One being that the focus site proves to be an environmentally safe and productive site. One being that one of the other sites that we've preliminarily looked at turns out to be a better site. You may have ideas, or we may find another site that in fact is better than any of the ones we've considered so far. Or in the final analysis, the fact of the matter is there may be no site that either satisfies the environmental impact statement or that proves to be a business-wise decision. I thank you. Having read the newspaper articles, I knew that would get a rise. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, John. I'm Larry Woods with Clough Arbor and Associates. As Barry had mentioned, we don't have a lot of information on the sites at this time, so my presentation will be very brief. I'll walk you through the alternatives analysis that the Thruway Authority has been involved with and we've been involved with for the last couple of years. And then I'll give you some site-specific information on the alternative site that we've identified. As I mentioned, we've been looking at this issue with the Thruway Authority for about 2 years, which has resulted in approximately 6 sites. I think many of you were up here in the beginning of the presentation looking at the maps that we have up here, and I urge you to come back up later and take a look at it. And what that shows is really what we have done to date as far as choosing sites is concerned. This has been a combination of topographic mapping, aerial photography, and actual field visits. And what we've come up with is actually 6 sites that we felt had potential based on the size and configuration of the median area to accommodate the type of facility that the Thruway facilities would require. I'm not going to go through all the 6 sites with you, and again, I offer you to come up and take a look at them later, but what we...
Why don't you take the time and go through them? I think we'd like to hear about it.
Okay, I can do that. Maybe you can hear, I don't know if you can hear me without the microphone. Are you all right? Like I said, we've looked at 6 sites. Now let me walk through them quickly. Well, let me orient you first to where you are on the map. This map represents a complete segment of the Berkshire Spur from the Massachusetts line down at this end, and the thruway main spur up at this end. The first site that we identified was milepost B19, which is right in this area here. This is just east of B2. This site was ideal for service area based on its configuration. However, one major limiting factor of it is it's a New York State DEC wetland. So immediately that site obviously was eliminated from consideration.
Is that site 3? Can you give us the site numbers as you go along with the not in order?
Site 1.
Site 1.
What milepost is that?
It's milepost B19. These are in no particular order either, so they're not graded or ranked in any way. Site 2 was at milepost B5, which was just adjacent to the previous service areas that were located in this area. Obviously, that was west of B1 and didn't meet the alternative for the desires of the Thruway Authority to pick up the I-90 traffic. Site 3 is at milepost B21, approximately this location. Getting close now to the Massachusetts border. Again, the median configuration in that area seemed that it could potentially accommodate a service facility. However, after further identification of hydrology, topography, and bedrock in that area, we felt that it probably wasn't going to meet the needs of the Thruway Authority.
Why not? Why not? Is it just money?
It would cost more. It's a difficult site to work with. It was very tough topography. Bedrock was a concern. It was difficult to work with.
Got any dynamite?
Site 4, which is a site that we've shown on our alternative here, which is between Bunker Hill Road and Woodward Road, is the one we feel is the most appropriate or viable at this time.
May I ask you a question about that?
I think what I'd like to do is go through with the presentation, and then we'll field your questions, if that's okay. I'd just like to get through it. Just hold your questions till it's completed, and then we'll get into it.
What mile marker was that?
That was at milepost B8. Site 5 at milepost B9.3. In this location, just east of the Bunker Hill site, again, seemed to have the adequate area in the median area to put the facility, but due to, again, site constraints, bedrock, topography, it would not be a preferable site.
Does that boil down to just economics?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. We've taken into obviously other alternatives, as I mentioned, topography, drainage, hydrology, bedrock, and obviously cost is one of the things that takes into account when we look at the location.
Do you have dollar figures for the work
I'm
that
not
would
going to
be
answer
required
questions.
on
I'd
the
like to
different
finish my
sites?
presentation, and then you can ask questions. Site 5, Site 6 was many of you familiar with the maintenance area at the B2 interchange. Thruway Authority looked at that site as a potential site. What it would require would be relocating the maintenance facility that's currently there, relocating the toll plazas, and obviously, again, it would be difficult to get westbound traffic to the site. Again, limitations included topography, drainage, water supply, and obviously economic.
But the Thruway owns all the land at B2. And they wouldn't have to condemn any
I don't
land.
really know the site that well, I can say that.
I believe that's your job, I'm sorry.
Now what I'd like to do is just kind of focus in on the site that we've identified here tonight. If any of you had a chance to come up and look at this previously to the presentation, and again, I offer to have you come up later and take a look at it again. Just to orient you, westbound in this direction, eastbound in this direction, service area in the median, with facilities on either side to get people to the facility. To give you an idea of the sizes, We have parking up in this area. These are really mirrored facilities. They're both pretty much the same for both east and westbound. You have parking here for about 35 trucks, parking for about 150 cars, bus parking in this area, a gas station, fuel storage, and gas pumps on either side. The facility in the middle of the median would be a 16,000 square foot facility with the facilities that Barry and John had previously described. I'm just about wrapping up, so at this point, I'd like to give it back to Barry and send the ground rules for the comments and questions. And at that point, we'll entertain no additions.
This is not the last. We are going to visit the alternative site analysis. What Larry said is not to say that the consideration of analysis of these alternative sites has ended. It is not. It has only begun. EIS will look at all these sites as alternatives, and the various factors attaching to these sites will be part and parcel of the EIS analysis. So this is not a quick kiss-off to alternatives. The way an EIS works, as I'm sure many of you know, is by way of analyzing, searching for the least environmentally adverse alternative.
Can you explain why Mr. Donamero said that he was going to have a hole in by spring if it wasn't that this is a kiss-off?
So,
Excuse me,
so what I'm trying to do here is to move the meeting forward away from polemic and towards the information gathering.
Can you give me a date when we're going to have the business case for all the alternatives so that it can be at least discussed and understood, evaluated by the public?
It'll be part of the draft
What's the
EIS.
date?
I can't give you a date.
Can we have a date for a date?
I can't give you a date, and I can't engage in this kind of
Who can give
polemic.
us the date?
No one can.
No one can give us the date
Right.
to assess and to evaluate the various business cases of each site.
Look, we're well aware that this proposal has stirred passion and intensity.
It has nothing to do with passion.
But this is not.
Purely a business,
But we're-
it's a business question.
I can't give you the answer. That's my answer. And the answer may not satisfy you, but that is an answer.
No, listen, I'm not asking for an answer. I'm asking what is the methodology by which we can expect an answer? Who, when can we have a date for a date?
The
We
methodology.
have an individual. Well, I don't like to talk to societies or organizations. They have no personhood. I'd like to have a name
You
associated.
can call me.
Very
I'll give
good.
you my card.
And you will provide me with the individual that will give us the business cases for the various alternatives?
The methodology commences tonight with scoping, which results in a final scoping document, which is turned into a draft EIS, and the information you're looking for is developed as part of that process. And as that information is developed,
We want
This is
a
public
date-
information.
A date
I-
for
no,
the
you're-
business case, for the business decisions behind what goes into the choice making.
we're not here to, I can't give you that tonight. What I can do tonight is invite people to come forward and air their concerns and inform us as to what an EIS should focus on.
Can
That's
we
the
set up
purpose of
another-
tonight's
Can we
meeting.
set up another meeting tonight for when that will be delivered to us?
We're here to do a scoping session. That's all we're here to do.
So you're not here to basically inform us and allow us to understand the workings behind this?
That's what
Is
we've
that
been,
it?
that's what
You're
we've been
just-
doing.
You're just simply telling us.
Look, I'm not here to engage in this kind of polemic.
I think I made my point.
Okay, can you start with Glenn Warren from the New York State Assembly?
Thank you. I'm Glenn Warren, State Assemblyman. I've represented the town of Schodack for 10 years and the town of Chatham for 11 years. First, before I get started, I want to thank the Thruway Authority for giving myself and other elected officials a briefing on Wednesday where you presented your plan, where we also presented our concerns at that time. And I'm appreciate you listening to us and also having this meeting. As I told you at that meeting, that you would have a good turnout and a very vocal turnout, that the people not only opposed this, they were vehemently opposed to it, and I think we're starting to see that now. As the Assemblyman who only represents the town of Chatham now this year, I have gotten letters from both sides of the county. It's literally in the hundreds of letters that the people who have shown concern. They are concerned. These people have moved to this rural area because it is a rural farming area. What you plan to do is to change the whole environment of that area from a very rural farming area into a commercial area, and this is not what these people have moved there for. It changes the whole reason why these people have gone there, invested their money, paid mortgages, paid taxes, so that they would be away from this. They are willing to travel to Albany, to Hudson, to even New York City to have this quality of life. And I believe by putting this here, you are changing the whole area and this quality of life which they have sought, because they are willing to pay the mortgages for, but they are willing to travel long distances to work. Rest area, and they may be legitimate ones, but I think the people, from your point of view, say, hey, you have your legitimate reasons, but not in our neighborhood, and that is a legitimate concern, because basically this is not zone commercial at all. It's not even, it comes close to even being at all. If you go for miles around, there's really nothing of this type around, and that's why the people move there. So from that concern, and the number of people have, you see a large turnout here, but the number of letters that I get, you figure probably there's about 10 people are concerned for every letter we get. So you're talking that people in the thousands have bothered to write to me and to the other legislators. So we ask you to please take this into consideration. It may not mean much to people who live in Albany or some of the other cities who don't understand the quality of life that these people have sought. But these people are in a rural farming area, they want it kept that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Hogenkamp from the town of Chatham.
Thank you for allowing me this time on tonight's agenda. My name is Bill Hogenkamp. I am the supervisor from the town of Chatham. While this project doesn't apply in the town of Chatham, it most clearly negatively impacts the residents of the town, particularly in our Chatham area. I have a copy of the resolution duly adopted by the town board of Chatham I wish to read into the record. However, before I read the resolution, I wish to make some comments on behalf of the residents of Chatham in the area of the proposed Bunker Hill Road West area site. I personally do not remember a Chatham that pre-exists in New York State Thruway. However, I am certain that many people objected to building the highway, and most certainly farmland was lost, and property values were valued in the area surrounding the thruway. To this day, residents trying to sell property in the town of Chatham lose out on sales or accept reduced prices for real estate due to the sight and or sounds emanating from the thruway. This adverse result is now given, and people moving into the area accept it grudgingly. Now, many years later, after opening Berkshire Spur, the Thruway Authority wants to change the rules of the game again. They want to create a rest area where none existed in the past. This is extremely unfair to those people living in the area. It is unfair to those people who were affected many years ago with the placement of the thruway near their property. It is also unfair to those newer residents who decided to move to Chatham to get away from the crowded conditions of Albany. Both groups are now about to be overwhelmed with a giant source of noise, light, and pollution in their backyards. Changing the rules in the middle of a ball game is not the American way. In this instance, changing the rules for the residents of my town will be devastating. It will cause irreparable harm to their quality of life. I ask the Thruway Authority play the game fairly and do not change the rules. I'd now like to read and enter into the record a copy of the resolution of the Chatham Town Board. At a regular meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Chatham, duly called and held on the 4th day of November 1993, It was on motion duly made and seconded unanimously. Resolved that the town of Chatham is opposed to the proposed New York State Thruway siting of a Berkshire Spurs Service Center within or adjacent to the town of Chatham, near the hamlet of North Chatham and the Wentworth County line for the following reasons. First, the project would use up to an estimated 90,000 gallons of water per day from the existing aquifer, thereby adversely affecting both the flow and the purity of local wells, many of which are shallow and serviced only by points. Two, the project's water usage would diminish the quality of the water serving the local streams that are used for both fishing and recreation. Three, the project would lessen the rural residential quality of life by magnifying and significantly increasing air pollution, noise pollution, the potential for criminal activities, lighting glare, school bus safety on access roads, and general traffic safety problems. The project would forever destroy the rural historic nature of North Chatham and the surrounding communities. The project's projected unprofitability makes it likely that the site will be abandoned in the long term, as other nearby sites have been. The effects of condemnation will lower the existing real property tax base and generally reduce property values. And seven, the project will increase solid waste and roadside litter, and it is further resolved that the written statement of concern of interested residents of the town of Chatham and surrounding areas as presented to this board is hereby attached to and made a part of this resolution. And is further resolved that because of the significant environmental, social, and economic concerns set forth above, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation be designated lead agency for this project for secret purposes and schedule on not less than 30 days' notice its only public informational hearing to be followed by the preparation and public distribution of a draft scope followed by at least 30 days' notice of a final public scoping session for the interested parties. Adopted unanimously by the town board this 4th day of November 1993. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. Before I leave, I'll give you a copy of the resolution and a study proposal from the Town of Chatham Conservation Advisory Committee. And finally, I have for you copies of letters to me from town residents who are concerned about the proposed rest area and effect on their lifestyle and community.
Thank you. Thank you. Michael Glavin, these are being called in the order you handed up. Mr. Glavin, Supervisor, Town Statement.
Both still up, our planning board attorney is going to read the statement.
I think you can see that I stand here before you tonight not merely representing myself, but representing the town board of the town of Skodak. With me tonight is Mr. Sal Plaza, the town attorney for the town of Skodak. Jim Tacey, councilman. Ellen Skelly, councilwoman. Tina Brown, councilman. Mike Glavin, town supervisor. And councilwoman Susan Lundfeld. Before I start my comments, I'd like to note that we do take some exception to the procedural issues involved in this project. The State Environmental Quality Review Act process generally commences with the submission of an environmental assessment form and application materials. That submission is generally made to an agency, and a lead agency is identified. Scoping generally is conducted by the lead agency. In these proceedings, no application materials have been available to the public. There has been no plan, no maps. There is very little technical data available for the public or for the municipalities to review in order to prepare comments for this scoping meeting. Furthermore, and fundamentally, there is no lead agency here. In fact, the Thruway has not identified all of the agencies involved in this process. In addition to the Thruway Authority, you have the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation regulates the wetlands which have been delineated and as shown on the officially promulgated map for this site. The Federal Army Corps of Engineers, which regulates the federal wetlands that are present on this site. The New York State Department of Health, the Rensselaer County Department of Health, which are involved in the permitting process for water supply applications and for community public water supply. Furthermore, we believe that the town of Skodak is an involved agency. The sole environmental assessment form, which has been made available to me by a third party, was prepared by C.T. Mail, who I understand is not the applicant's engineer. However, that LEAF has been the basis of several of our comments here. Since there is no lead agency appointed and there has been no LEAF available to the general public, the town of Skodak would like to reserve the right to comment on the final proposed scoping document, which is promulgated or proposed by the Thruway, and surely on any scoping document which will be proposed by the lead agency when one is determined.
Duly noted.
Thank you. The impacts that the town board of the town of Skodak have found with respect to this project fall into three categories: the economic impacts, water resources, and the nature and character of the neighborhood. Before I go further, I'd like to read into the record a resolution which was duly adopted by the board of the town of Skodak at its regular meeting on October 28, 1993. At a regular meeting of the town board of the town of Skodak, Rensselaer County, New York, held at 1777 Columbia Turnpike in said town on the 20th day of October 1993 at 7 p.m. The following resolution was offered by Councilperson Tacey, who moved its adoption, seconded by Councilperson Skelly. Now therefore be it known that the town board of the town of Skodak does hereby resolve that the town board of the town of Skodak is strongly opposed to the placement of a travel plaza on the Thruway near the Bunker Hill Bridge in the town of Skodak. I'd like to submit this resolution for the record. As planning board attorney, I frequently have been asked whether or not the town of Skodak zoning ordinance will apply to this project. I recognize the position of the Thruway as being that local zoning and building do not apply to Thruway projects. However, that is true to the extent that the Thruway is exercising its power and in providing an essential governmental function. Town Board of Skodak believes, however, that in this project, the town is not, or the Thruway is not, serving an essential governmental function, but rather is acting as proprietary functions. Premises are to be developed and operated pursuant to a lease with McDonald's Corporation, in which the Thruway is to share 6 to 10% of the revenues. Pursuant to the Thruway's 1992 annual report issued March 31st, 1993, restaurant leases secure the debt service of the Cross-Westchester Expressway Special Obligation Bonds, which were issued to fund the authority's 1991 purchase from the state of New York of the 11-mile highway connection designated as Interstate Route 287 in Westchester County. Specifically, I quote, "The debt service from these bonds will be funded through a secured lien on post-1996 rental payments received by the authority from the rental operations of certain restaurants along the Thruway system." We submit that the fundamental purpose of this project is the generation of revenue in order to repay the debt service the Thruway obligated itself to in connection with the purchase of the Cross-Westchester Expressway. issues for the town of Skodak are the adverse impacts to its water resources and the adverse impacts to the nature and quality of the neighborhood in the project's location. The town of Skodak has evidenced a clear legislative intent to preserve and protect the water resources of the town by its enactment of an Aquifer Protection Law. The Aquifer Protection Law was enacted through local law pursuant to the town's police powers, rather than as a part of its zoning ordinance. The portion of the law which has been enacted to date regulates development and requires oil water separators for large parking areas. This provision was specifically put in place to preserve groundwater quality from the runoff from large paved areas. Over the past year, the town board has continued its review and deliberations concerning enactment of the provisions of the Aquifer Protection Law regulating commercial development, and already voted to apply the law to commercial development. The town board anticipates that this legislative process will be completed before year end. Enactment of this portion of the law will have significant effects on the viability of this project. The town board submits that this project will have adverse impacts to groundwater. Its location and proximity to the Skodak Aquifer and the Valatia Kill Aquifer present potential contamination to groundwater. As evidenced in the LEAF prepared by CT Mail, the soils are very permeable in this area. In addition, substantial vegetation is to be replaced by nearly 14 acres of paved surface. Underground storage tanks for gasoline, diesel fuel, and other heating fuels are proposed for this project. Proposed effluent discharge in the amount of 25 gallons per day will come from an on-site sewage treatment plant. Discharge from the sewage treatment plant is to a classified tributary of the Valatia Kill. The Valatia Kill, I believe, is also a tributary to the Hudson River. Clearly, impacts from this project will adversely affect the water quality of the groundwater. Furthermore, as previously noted by the supervisor for the town of Chatham, we believe that the substantial use of water from on-site wells will potentially reduce the water supply for residents within the area. Review of the long-form environmental assessment form indicates that the project is estimated to require approximately 30,000 gallons per day, with up to 90,000 gallons per day in peak periods. Average pumping capacity for these wells are 115,000 gallons per day to 144 gallons per day. Proposed project will have significant impact on community services. The long-form environmental assessment form identifies that the project will generate approximately 27 tons per month of solid waste, which translates to about 324 tons annually. This waste is proposed to be disposed of in a Rensselaer County solid waste management facility. Rensselaer County does not have a landfill, and the town of Skodak's landfill is under closure. The town of Skodak, the project is in the town of Skodak. The town of Skodak is in a solid waste management planning unit. There is no indication whatsoever that available capacity for this quantity of waste is present in the planning units of the solid waste management plans. Finally, the impacts to the nature and character of this rural area are significant. The Thruway proposes to place an urban facility in the middle of a rural residential area. Thruway officials that I've spoken to indicated that this was basically rural farmland, few homes out there. This morning I met with the town assessor for the town of Skodak. We identified within a very short proximity 33 homes that will be adversely affected by this project. 33 homes, all of which are on lots in excess of 1.5 acres. Merely because this is a rural community does not mean that people do not live out here in a residential environment. In sum, the town of Skodak believes that this project will have adverse economic impacts, adverse impacts to its water quality and quantity, and will significantly and adversely affect the quality and nature of the neighborhood in which this is proposed to be located. Thank you.
Thank you for a lawyerly, comprehensive presentation. And I just want to say that that's what we're here to find out, that sort of information and that level of presentation. Michael Rosen.
Thank you. I'm Michael Rosen. I have with me the other members of the Chatham Town Board, which I'd like to introduce: Joe Lytle, Jack King, Councilman-elect Gordon Gaynor, Supervisor Hopenkamp, who spoke earlier, and to my right, Art Fredericks, who would also like to make comments. Let me begin by thanking you for giving us the opportunity to appear before you today. I'd like to begin by noting that I've served on the board for 9 years, and in that time, I've never seen so much opposition to any one issue, not taxes, not zoning, not even solid waste. Among the concerns that I'd like to speak to are ones that affect not only the immediate vicinity of North Chatham, but the surrounding community as well. The calls and the letters that I've received have concerned a number of issues, but primarily they concern the water usage. We understand that the projected daily use of this project is 20 to 30,000 gallons a day. Many of the wells of the community are likely to be affected. Our town resolution speaks to the presence of shallow wells called points, which we view as extremely vulnerable. I'd like to point out that this is an area that is not served by municipal water. Given the rural nature of the community, it is likely to ever be served by a municipal system. So if this well water is depleted, there's no viable replacement. I'm sure others tonight will undoubtedly speak to a host of environmental concerns, including water pollution, air contamination, noise pollution, solid waste and litter, and increased traffic. The final point that I'd like to speak to concerns the nature of the community that this is likely to affect. This is not like siting a service area near a modern suburban subdivision. A modern suburban subdivision may be residential in nature, but it is a modern facility. If this project goes forward, it will change forever an historic rural colonial site. North Chatham was founded in 1795. Once the characteristic of this hamlet is changed through night lighting, noise pollution of trucks shifting upwards and downwards, and water pollution is lost forever. We cannot rebuild an authentic colonial hamlet. In closing, I would like to urge you to consider an alternative site that's more appropriate. Turn the microphone over to Art Fredericks.
Thank you. To echo Mike's sentiments, I'm not here to address environmental concerns this evening because that can be done by people much more knowledgeable and experienced than I. However, I am by education, training, and experience a businessman, and I feel that there are some economic factors that need to be addressed on this proposal. One vital concern that I believe has not been adequately addressed is the economic aspect of the construction of the proposed service area. It's been stated by Thruway Authority personnel in past meetings, most recently the briefing that was held last Wednesday that was chaired by Executive Director Shepard, that it is probable that this facility will not operate at a profit. This creates potential problems with the use of public monies. If the proposed facility is to be funded more or less equally by the authority and by a private concern, McDonald's Corporation has been mentioned, the prudently written contract will provide for equally divided profits and losses. Since it would not be in the best interest of any corporation to knowingly construct a facility that would lose money, and since the proposed facility would probably lose money, it's clear that the authority intends to subsidize the operations of the operator. My question is this a wise use of public or quasi-public monies?
No.
In closing, one related question arises. Is it not probable that revenues generated by this facility will simply be stolen from existing businesses in Chatham and Scottsdale? Thank you.
Assemblyman Casal.
We had a presentation a week ago at the Thruway headquarters on Route 9W, and your town attorney for the town of Skodak did an excellent job. She was in attendance at that meeting, and she explained it in a very professional manner to every detail possible. She's done her homework, and she's done an excellent job. Your town supervisor, Mike, gave us a 2-hour tour this afternoon, took the time out of his schedule to bring me on both sides of the bridges, the overpasses, to show me each one of the houses that are affected here. And there's some beautiful homes in there, and I'm sure if I had invested in a home in there, I wouldn't want a development like this to come in on top of it. I would be crushed. The single largest investment a person makes in their life is their home. And with that in mind, we should listen. Secondly, being in business and knowing how tough it is to survive in business with all the mandates in your state and your federal governments nowadays, there's a whole variety of businesses leading right down to 9 and 20 that I use myself in passing through this area quite often. And even before I became a representative. And I'm sure I wouldn't be using them now if this large McDonald development was in this place. So it certainly is going to have, in my opinion, an effect on all the small businesses, many of the small businesses in this area that would service people coming through. I don't know what it would do to them, probably just make it a lot of vacant stores or office fronts on that road. Sure, in a positive, there's much to be gained with the development and the extra activity of creating jobs. It certainly is going to be for the short term. Once the development is built, it'll be over with, and we do need those jobs. But I'd rather see, if it's possible, they do have another location which is located in a more rural area, but it may have some water problems from what they explained to us at the briefing last week. That's an alternative. I really, we're right outside the town of Skodak, the business district. We're right outside the city of Albany, and I don't see where we need this big restaurant, McDonald's, and all of the development. Into a large scheme of things as they go around the state and the Thruway Authority, and you show where every 60, 80, 100 miles there's a stop. But I think this stop is not necessary. It's too close to Albany. Thank you.
Wendy Gash from North Chatham.
Okay, most of these considerations have been covered by professionals who really understand everything. I'm speaking as a homeowner in North Chatham. When I moved to North Chatham, I had come from Old Chatham. Old Chatham is an equally lovely community, very fashionable, very chic. But there was one thing we didn't know when we lived there. That was the thruway was very, very close. And on a summer evening, when you had the windows open, you could not sleep past 4 in the morning. The reason for this was the trucks shifting gears. They were gearing up to go over across into Massachusetts, across the state line, and the racket was unbelievable. So when it came time for us to buy a house, we didn't buy it in Old Chatham, we bought it in North Chatham. It was much quieter and much more pleasant. And now if we have to listen to this over in North Chatham, we're really stuck. Thank you very much.
Gail Goodall from the South Skodak Fire District.
Thank you. In reference to the scoping, I was to talk in reference to the sites 2 and 4, which is within the area or parameters of the South Skodak Fire Commissioners. There has been questions tonight that this facility will be self-supporting and may not need local dependent firefighter service, etc., which is in the environmental draft. At the moment, the thruway in this area for 8 miles is being serviced by the local volunteer fire departments. The New York State Thruway does not have their own fire protection authorities. Therefore, we have to presume that 2 and 4 would also require additional manpower and firefighting services from our fire department. At the moment, we have not been included in any questionnaire, etc., in reference to scoping. As you can appreciate, the impact would be great, not only on the manpower, but questions in reference to accessibility to the site, water supply at the site. We wish to go on record to be acknowledged that we need input at an early stage if we are to continue to provide fire service for this facility, if it should be developed. We want to be known as a good neighbor, not as burnt toast of the Berkshire. Thank you.
Mr. Kiernan, resident of North Chatham.
Thank you. I'll be very brief in my remarks. I wanted to speak tonight about the environmental impact that this project would have in the area. Some of our elected representatives have already spoken in this area, and I won't belabor the point. But I wonder, as a taxpayer, why the Thruway Authority is looking at building a proposed business site that is not going to lose money, that is not wanted by the area in which it's to be located, and which will have such a severe impact on the environment of the area. It doesn't seem to me that this will enable the Thruway Authority to meet the obligations of the Cross Westchester bond payoff, and it will not do anything to enhance the Thruway's image in the area. So I ask you to think prudently if there aren't any other sites that would allow you to have a gateway to the New York State Thruway system in an area that will not have as severe as an impact as this will have on the North Chatham and Skodak area. Thank you.
David Cavagnaro, I think it's pronounced, North Chatham Concerned Citizens.
Thank you. My name is David Cavagnaro. Pronounced it well. I am a resident of North Chatham, lives on Bunker Hill Road. I possibly could be within 500 yards of the exit of this proposed site. I wanted to state that, of course you can hear that I'm a little nervous. Excuse me. I'm currently involved in restoring a 1840 Georgian colonial, which I am enjoying very much, and also in the process of constructing an outbuilding that corresponds very nicely to the house. With my limited means within myself and my family, we've been working very strongly and to reduce the effects the road has already on us. And of course I realized we bought there knowing it was there. But my point is I've been constructing some barriers there. I've firmed up some areas to try to reduce the sound. I've planted trees, and as I said, my limited means is living in a very strong way. I'm sure it would take a 20-foot concrete wall to even come close to reducing any noise. So I'll try to shorten this up, but basically I don't believe there's anything that you could do to reduce the effects that this proposed project would have. I don't think there's anything you could do that would cushion the hardness that would affect me personally and the community. Thank you.
Sandra Lynn, I think it is.
I'm not going to thank you for being here because I really wish I wasn't. Since we found out... Since we found out about this proposed project, no thanks to the Thruway, it was only through stumbling upon a talkative surveyor that we even found out about this project. We started digging around, calling the Thruway, informing our neighbors. So I don't thank you for being here because this has been probably the most awful 2 months that we've had in our 15 years of married life. It is very difficult to express to you in words the anguish and the anger and the powerlessness that my family and I have been experiencing these past 2 months. My husband and I have lived in our cheerful, pleasant home for 14 years. We have born and raised 2 children here. We have planted, pruned, improved, and tended these 4 acres in a pre-Civil War home. We have always considered ourselves caretakers and protectors of the gurgling trout stream that bisects our property. We have witnessed generations of blue herons, mallards, otter, and trout play out their migrations and life cycles here. We are not wealthy people. We are 2 teachers that put themselves through graduate school while working several jobs and tending small children. Everything and every cent that we have worked hard and long for is tied up in our property on Woodward Road, town of Skodak, a stone's throw from the primary site of the New York State Thruway's proposed Gateway Travel Plaza. We are adamantly opposed to this project at this site. It not only will devaluate our property and ruin the quality of our lives, it will also harm the inhabitants of protected wetlands, drain our aquifer, and change the nature of nearby North Chatham forever. I beg you to protect the citizens of this area and to use your influence to put an end to this project at its current site. Thank you.
Betty Huntley.
Years ago, my family bought their home in North Chatham. We felt we were very lucky to be able to have 90 acres at that time. Before we finished farming, we had 500. Not the ones we really wanted, because the thruway had already gone through our farm and taken 90 acres out of the middle of it. Now, I live right down the road from Dave Cavanero, and if this program goes through, I think you've heard all the reasons of why we are not happy about it. My children planted the trees along the thruway that will probably be cut down. And all in all, I'm very much against it, and I hope you people do a little reconsidering.
Lynn Mitchison?
Sitting beside me are Mary Daniel and Betty Huntley. Accumulatively, the three of us have lived in North Chatham for over 200 years. We have swum and boated and canoed in the Valatia Kill. We have stood out on dark nights and enjoyed the quiet, the peacefulness, and the stars. We have raised healthy children who have been able to enjoy the fresh drinking water. We would like to ensure this kind of a healthy atmosphere for the generations to come.
Lloyd Franks, who lives on Bunker Hill Road, and it always amazes me how aptly named these sites so often are.
I handed you a document that describes and lists the service stations on the Berkshire Spur and on the Thruway, all the way to Pattersonville and down to New Baltimore. And it describes the mileage distances as you go east, west, north, and south. And I had to say that you gentlemen had been disingenuous in describing the mileages, because the mileages which we ran are totally different from the mileages you describe. And the mileages we show make the proposed site absolutely superfluous. What you're proposing here is to have thruway stops every 15 miles from New Baltimore to Canaan. And you are ignoring the fact that Canaan has service areas. I know that the thruway doesn't officially recognize Canaan as in existence, but that does not mean it doesn't exist. There are services. Motorists can get on and off at Canaan without paying the toll because it's a free portion of the thruway. There are adequate services there. That is the 0 mileage point that I've shown on my chart here. As an alternative, I would ask you, please don't even put one on the Berkshire Spur. It's not necessary. If you want to pay your debts, if you need to pay your debts, put another one in Westchester County, and just go up to Guilderland and put a little ramp over the thruway and make it accessible going north, and you've got the same 15 miles gained that you would have gained by putting the Bunker Hill site in there. Only 15 miles is gained by Bunker Hill, and you get that by putting a ramp up at Guilderland. Thank you.
Jim Catlett?
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight. I moved to North Chatham 9 years ago because it was a quaint hamlet where I felt I could bring up my children without some of the urban problems that were found in some of our other cities in the area. My major concern is the fact that many, many thousands of people will be brought into our area, will be looking over a fence into a small hamlet of North Chatham, one that which most of my neighbors do not lock their doors at night and do not worry about any of the crime that is present in most of the surrounding cities. I would like to see that the Thruway Authority reconsider this proposal because it will do irreparable harm to a beautiful hamlet that needs to stay the way it has been for hundreds of years. Thank you.
Robert Lynn, Concerned Citizens of Chatham.
Good evening. As I look around tonight, I see literally hundreds of faces that are coming out tonight in response to the threat that we feel from this proposal. What we want is for the Thruway Authority to show enlightened thinking in regard to this proposal and not just legal technicalities, because our citizens group was formed as a result of accidentally finding out about the proposal. Nobody came into our community and talked to us ahead of time to ask us how we felt about it. And part of the anger that I have felt over the last 2 months, which have been hell for myself, as well as my wife and my children, who I haven't spoken to hardly in 2 months, is the sense of powerlessness we feel. What we're asking you to do is to please listen to us. Please listen to what we're saying, and don't just look at an economic agreement that the Thruway Authority made with McDonald's 2 or 3 years ago. That agreement, the lawyers from McDonald's and the lawyers from the Thruway Authority can sit down and renegotiate that agreement, I believe. I'm not a lawyer, although I have high regard for the legal profession when it's appropriately applied. We have had to fight for information. I'm an honorably discharged serviceman. I was raised outside the Bronx. I know what it's like to live in a densely crowded area. I love my home. We've been here over 14, 15 years now. We're not against progress, but we're against mindless development. Development that clearly, from our point of view, is not necessary for anyone on the Berkshire Spur. And what I need to tell you, first of all, I want to thank you for coming out, because I wish some other people were here, like Mr. Schaefer, or Mr. Tufer, or Ms. Carey, or Mr. Warren from the board, the people who are going to vote on this proposal. Mr. Donnarumma in particular, the chief engineer, who says the quality of life is not really measurable, so it's not considered. I hope you will pass along our concerns to him. Please, when you go back to your offices, use the power that you have not to foist this ill-thought project on our community. We want to go back to what we were doing before this even came into our lives, which is taking care of our children, working our jobs to the best of our ability, and living in harmony. I want to thank all my neighbors and friends that I see here tonight for taking the time and coming out and showing support for this cause. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lynn, this is ahead of time, and we are listening, and I'm gratified to hear your high regard for the legal profession. It's a rare treat. Marilyn Gerharty, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, from North Chatham.
Garrity, and I live on Route 32 in North Chatham. My voice is shaking because since I've gone to school, I have never gotten up in front of an audience to speak. I certainly relate to Assembly Warren's statement regarding people moving into this area. My husband and I both retired about 5 years ago, and I got a call from my daughter who lives on Bunker Hill Estates to tell me, Mom, I found this beautiful house on Route 32. You've got to come up to see it. And I said, no, I'm not leaving my friends. I'm not leaving my area. I'm so happy where I am. Well, we came up, looked at the area, looked at the house. I put my house up for sale, and we were here within months. I just wanted to say that where I live, I can look out. I have a beautiful view of the freeway. So when this thing is built, I'll be able to see lights, I'll be able to see the cars, I'll be able to hear the sound, I'll be able to smell anything that's out there. But aside from that, there are two different things that I'd like to speak about that I haven't heard about. And one is the disaster that occurred in 1986, just miles down the road at the site of the old Northeast truck stop on Route 9 north of the Thruway. There, 8,000 gallons of PCB lake waste oil leaked from underground tanks into the bedrock below. That site sits on a natural aquifer which supplies water to thousands of area residents. According to authorities, the cleanup of that site, which began in 1992, will be a 6-year process. The long-term environmental impact is still unknown at this time. As you can see, my notes have been crossed off because everybody has said all the things that I want to say. Also, the New York Times reported in a September 1991 article that approximately 25% of groundwater in the United States is already contaminated by leaking underground storage tanks, with millions of Superfund dollars already being spent to clear up the Northeast truck stop. Why open the door for another catastrophe? Thank you very much.
Justice Apple?
I have lived in North Chatham for 36 years on Route 203. I have been honored to be the town justice for the town of Chatham for the last 9.5 years. And perhaps I should come and talk to you about the problem that we might have with crime that would come with your project. However, I come to you this evening to talk to you as a grandmother and a mother. My children grew up in North Chatham. They played and fished in the stream. They hiked and camped in the fields and in the woods. And they rode their bicycles up these same roads that you have on this map. Now I want your assurance for me and for all of the other parents and grandparents here that when the effluent from this project joins the water in the stream, my grandsons who still live in North Chatham, are they going to be able to play and fish in that stream? Are they going to be able to hike and camp in the fields and woods with the transient population just through a gate? And are they going to be able to ride their bicycles on those roads that are going to be loaded with trucks delivering the supplies to your project? I think that's an awfully important thing to me. And I hope that I'm speaking on behalf of the parents and grandparents of the nearly 150 children that live within 1.5 miles of this project. Thank you.
Jack Lee?
Good evening. My name's Jack Lee. I'm a neighbor of Betty Huntley's and Dave. I live on Bunker Hill Road. I was going to address the wetlands. They have been appropriate. I do have a map that doesn't coincide with yours. I will show it to you after. I do want to mention one thing. 3 years ago, I have a point. I'm sure you're aware of what a point is. Most of us do. It got clogged. I had Gould come in to dig a well. It went down 150 feet. I got sulfur. $3,500 later, I'm getting it cleared up. These are very channeled waters under all of North Chatham. I'm sure the engineers know a lot more about it than I. That's one point. The other point is, I brought up 5 children in this area. I'm on the verge of retiring. I have set up a marsh down to the back of my field where I can have wildlife, birds. I have wild turkeys, geese. I deserve it, and I want it. I'm an honorable discharged combat infantry veteran, and I feel that I should, and I deserve it better than what you have put on my table. Thank you. Dominic DeDeo.
I'd like to ask a question. Is it, the attorney from Skodak, I think, did an excellent job. And my question is, being familiar with the Environmental Review Act, is it not true that the scoping process should be held by the lead agency?
Well, you know, no good deed goes unpunished, and our thinking on that was to get out here as quickly as possible, given the concern and the anxiety expressed in the newspaper articles we were reading and the comments we were getting from public officials. The lead agency has not yet been designated. That is true. We anticipate that the lead agency will be the Thruway Authority.
My question wasn't answered. I'll ask it again. My question was, is it not true that the lead agency is the agency that should conduct the scoping process?
Yes.
Then what you've done thus far, as I've seen with many of these projects, is you've conducted an illegal meeting.
No.
Yes. You've been presumptuous. Well, you called it a scoping section. And you're not the lead agency. You haven't been determined as the lead agency. The only thing that stops you people are legal actions. If you're starting a project and you're starting already doing things wrong, legally, and you're sitting there telling me that you haven't been determined as the lead agency, if you're not determined as lead agency, then all these comments that the people have been making should be made to the lead agency at a scoping process. Before the scoping process should be legal, why not determine who the lead agency should be?
Mr. Lynn, do you still have a high regard for the legal profession out there?
No comment.
Herb Magidson.
Mr. Schreiber, I'm speaking also as a homeowner on Bunker Hill Road. As you can see from tonight's speeches, there are many of us on Bunker Hill Road. That's an important point. My wife and I have been on Bunker Hill Road for 15 years. It's taken us that time to restore what is now a really very beautiful 100-year-old Victorian house. We're 7 houses from the Thruway. I think the depth of our feeling is clear to you. I want you to know, sir, that it is not directed personally at you, but it is very real. You said earlier that legalities are important, and we know that you are right. You also said that the heart of the process is environmental impact. And we want to say here that there's another heart to this process. It's what New York State, through its representatives, does to its citizens. And this is a horror for at least 400 of its citizens who live within 1 mile of the area. A number of us have walked the area, and I mean very sincerely to invite you to walk with us to see the number of homes within 1 mile, and we know our neighbors and how many people live in each house, and I feel confident that we can really show you there are 400 people who live within 1 mile.
I think that tour would be very productive.
We would appreciate it. And what it means, therefore, when the representative from Skodak talked about 33 homes, I believe that she was talking about 33 homes in Skodak. Because there are so many people involved, what we're really saying is that if there are going to be in the winter trucks that are on all night because the drivers are tired and they want to stay warm, if there has to be a rest stop, and I agree with Lloyd that in addition to the Canaan stop, exit 10 and exit 11 have restaurants, they have gas stations, which are used now, and we hope will continue to be used because that's also helpful to our tax base. But what more than 400 people are saying to you is if the trucks are on all night, please put this in a place where people are not bothered. If the garbage disposal smells horrible, put it in a place where there are not people. If the lights are on all night, it won't harm us if there are no people living there. If there is tremendous noise pollution, we don't want 400 people to hear it. Put it in a spot, and we've all driven, by the way, and I'm sure that many of your people have. There are lots of areas where there are not 400 people, or 100 people, or 20 people. Finally, let me say this, that there is one good thing that has come out of the process so far. And it's really political in a very real sense. The citizens of this diverse area are banding together as never before. I'm not trying to really make a speech to you or get applause, but it's very true. We're getting to know each other and appreciate each other's special talents and contributions. And so I'd like to end by saying to you what I'm sure you know now, and that is that this thruway proposal, in a way, has disturbed the hornet's nest. And we want you to know, in a respectful way, that we're going to grow and we're going to work as a united, active team and do everything that is necessary to save our community and defeat this proposal. Thank you very much.
Peter McGowan.
I'd like to make two brief comments. One is about your site plan. First of all, if it's get people on the thruway to travel farther and faster, why do you have walkovers? It would just seem that people now park right outside and get into the restroom as fast as they can. It doesn't seem like you really thought through this point. Also, if you have just a visitor center near the Massachusetts border, it seems like all the rest of the services can be provided elsewhere. And lastly, when I walk out my back door on a clear night, I can see more stars than I can count. I can clearly see the Milky Way up there. My son's 1 year old right now, and when he's old enough that I can explain that to him, I want him to be able to see it too. Thank you.
Johnson.
I want to comment on the solidarity of the town board. I've been to a lot of meetings over the years. I'm a regular at planning board meetings, or the town board meetings, very interested in the environment and the ambience and good life of Skodak. I don't live on the south end of Skodak, I live on the north end of Skodak, but I'm a resident of Skodak. And I'm proud to see that this board has gotten together and it joined forces to oppose a bad idea. It really is a bad idea. I get real nervous, so really. It's too bad that the sign-up cards did not have a spot to show the signers support or opposition to this proposal or any of the alternatives. Could we count the people here in support of the proposal and say the rest are in opposition? This would save everyone else the need to speak in order to be counted as opposed. It really is an injustice for all these people to come, and the only way they can be recorded as being opposed is to get up and speak. So, it would seem that putting a little note on the card would have saved a lot of problems and it would have helped out. And I really do think this is a bad idea.
I think the record could reflect that. Without much difficulty. Frank Daggett.
Right here. Most of the concerns have been covered, but I just want to mention one thing. With your site plan up here, you mentioned site one was rejected because of wetlands. And this area has numerous wetlands, so I don't know why you're wasting our time even considering this area.
Okay. Lawyers usually get cream when they try to do what I'm about to do, but it may be a technical point, but I think it's also an important point that it's not a site plan. It's what you see is not necessarily what you get. It's an architect's rendering. It's a concept. We asked them to draw a picture of what it could look like, and that's all you've got up there. And I think that's important enough to stress.
That's enough.
Stanley Ortner. Mr. Ortner.
I wanted to suggest that the Thruway Authority review the exit B3. Presently, there are 3 gas stations there, a restaurant, convenience store, a motel, large trucking areas, and it's the first entrance in from Massachusetts. It's also the site of Route 22, which is a major north-south highway for truckers. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Lippitz.
Like others, I'm not used to speaking to a group like this. I'll try to make it as brief as I can. Most of the points that I would have made have been made, but I think it's important to tell my neighbors that I stand with them. I think that this idea is a bad idea. I think the environmental impact will be terrible. I think that it's an unnecessary plan. And I question whether it is doing the state of New York any good to build something which might lose money, or very likely would. As a citizen, I would feel that that is a disservice. One small point I would like to address, which hasn't been before, and maybe it is rather minor, but it was brought out early that perhaps a nagging reason why the Thruway is interested in putting this site where they are discussing it is because of a peak that some people are going off on Route 90 extension who might otherwise go on to the main Thruway and through Albany that way, and perhaps they're confused. Now, I'm a little surprised that an authority that spends as much as it does on signage and informing people has any problem letting people know anything important, even at 55 miles an hour. I would suggest that if you found that a good solution to this problem would be to use the influence of the authority and any friends you can find. I think that we would be your friends if you were to launch a movement or take whatever action is necessary to change the name of I-90 extension to perhaps I-190 so people wouldn't confuse it with the Thruway West. Thank you.
Maureen Connigan?
Maureen Corrigan.
Sorry.
As a resident of North Chatham, I would like to address the issue of crime. This project will surely bring to our area, that is crime at the plaza and in the village itself. Crimes such as drug deals, car vandalism, property damage, theft, personal attacks, and reckless driving would become a reality. Our homes would be subject to theft and property damage due to the vast numbers of people that would be in our backyard, people that never even knew this hamlet existed. Crimes committed at the rest stop and in our village will burden our local courts. The increased caseload will result in the use of local tax dollars in order to hear these cases. Thank you.
Mark, I'm not sure of this name, Twenteman?
It's good not to have the cameras here. I wasn't sure whether I was going to speak tonight, but I think there's some things that I'm not sure have been expressed, and people ahead of me have done an excellent job. I grew up in the Cortland Valley. What's that got to do with tonight? An interstate highway went through my father's farm when I was growing up. This proposed site is on another piece of farmland. We're continuing to sacrifice farmland, which is going to become a valuable resource in the future that we can't continue to sacrifice. Another thing was mentioned earlier about the tourism. If that concerns tourism, all we need is a little hutch out at the Massachusetts border or next to the toll booths at those points, and where they get their tickets, you can hand out literature. You don't need, this is not necessary. It just isn't necessary. There's enough other areas. The other thing that really has not been talked about is the fact that this multi-million-dollar facility is going to be totally tax exempt from any property taxes, while the businesses that compete with it are paying property taxes to the local schools and towns and counties. And that's all I have. Thank you.
D. Cummings from Concerned Citizens.
I'm a homeowner and I'm a resident and a mother from North Chatham. The Thruway Plaza that you're proposing would be less than 1 mile from my home. I've lived in North Chatham for 15 years. I like it because I can leave home and leave my door unlocked. I like it because I can forget to put down my garage door in the morning and come home and find that my lawnmower has not been stolen. I like it because I know my neighbors. And I like it because they know me and we all know each other and we know when there's a stranger in town. I also like it because I'm a mother that is not always home until 5:30 and my son comes home from school at 2:30. And there are other children in town, other teenage boys in particular that are in town that have the same situation. And as a mother, I feel safe that I'm not there even though my son is at home because I know he can go to a neighbor's. I know he can be anywhere in that stretch in North Chatham and pretty much be safe. Recently I came home and he had not left me a note where he was. So I walked to the post office. By the time I got there, I met 2 people who had seen him. That does not happen in an urban setting. I'm very concerned that as a mother of a teenage boy, that when I'm not around and working, that the lure of a McDonald's, less than a mile away, less than a walk away, less than a bike ride away, puts him and other children and other teenagers at a risk and a lure and a situation which they cannot be expected to manage. If he goes there on his bike, I don't know who he'll meet. I don't know who will offer him what. I don't know who will take him away. And I know I can't protect him like any mother can. None of us can. But why put him in a situation in which he's at risk for whoever is in those 300 cars in that parking lot and those 82 trucks? I hope that you reconsider this so that the children, the teenagers of North Chatham remain safe. As a parent, it's the best you can do.
I have about 25 cards remaining. We will stay here all night if necessary. Anyone can speak who wants to and who signs a card. On the other hand, if your concerns have already been aired or otherwise communicated, you know who you are. I'll leave it up to you. Oh. Yes, sir. Sir, would you like to? David Clayton.
Thank you. Just first, I'd like to say I would like to see the memo on the desk of the public relations person for the Thruway in the morning when he hears about this meeting. And he can be assured that if this is to continue, that there'll be other memos to follow. There was some mention before of procedure. I just wanted to make one point in that when you have a proposed project or an undertaking, be it this or a local law or whatever, under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, there's supposed to be a determination of lead agency. And that point was been brought up that there has really, as of yet, not been one made. And I think the reason this is important is because when the determination is made as to who the lead agency will be, that lead agency then must go forth and make a determination as to a declaration of positive or negative declaration onto the project. And that procedure is this second step. Upon making that determination, whether this is going to have a negative or positive declaration, which, by the way, they mean the opposite words, then, and only then, is the lead agency to consider the undertaking of an environmental impact statement. I think what we've done here is we've said, we haven't determined lead agency, we haven't made a declaration yet, negative or positive dec, but we're going to go ahead and prepare an environmental impact statement. So it's kind of like out of order. I think we need to get the order straight, and I think it's important that you, the agency involved in this, follow those laws. Because if you're not going to follow these laws, I don't believe you're going to follow the other laws that are going to pertain to putting this project in or not putting it in correctly. That's right. I think the sentiment here amongst everybody has been fairly well expressed. And I mean, I think everybody that gets up here is going to say the same things over and over. We don't want this. And I don't live anywhere near this project, but I've had to fight certain similar concerns in my backyard, in my part of Skodak, and I feel for the people that live there. And I'm trying to help them to make the thruway see the light here, and you should go somewhere else with this. But one thing that I did see in some of the communications about this that stuck in my mind was somewhere where a spokesman for the Thruway and Authority, and I'm not sure who, I wish I remembered to write down the name, had said that one of their concerns was the opposition to this project by the neighbors and the neighborhood. And that if there was what they felt a substantial opposition to this, that they were going to look into citing this elsewhere. I guess I'll end my comments by saying, gentlemen, you know, you really should just take a look around tonight, and I think it's clear that we don't want you in Skodak, and you should find another place to cite this. Thank you.
I won't take that last comment personally.
My name is Bill Rowe. I'm a resident of the town of Skodak, and I'm also a homeowner in North Chatham, and I expect that to be my new residence very shortly. I'm wondering if that qualifies tongue-in-cheek for 6 minutes rather than 3.
Well,
just a few points. Wasn't serious.
There's still plenty of people
Just a few points. That wasn't a serious observation. I'd like for the record to show a request that the Appendix D, the scoping checklist, be listed as a request at this meeting for your scope. If the items that are included in that checklist are not included in your scoping document that you produced, I would expect that they would be, or ask that they would be, number one. Number two, I'd like to make an observation on what you very astutely picked up on, and that was your consultant's biased comments relative to the seeker process and the alternate sites. I believe his observation was something to the effect that at least one or two of the alternate sites did not meet the needs of the authority. And if this is an open seeker process, I don't see how you can expect your consultant to perform an unbiased evaluation.
We haven't foreclosed consideration of any of these sites.
Well, the record shows that your consultant is of a different mind.
Well, I disagree with your interpretation of the record.
Okay. Number three, there's a provision in the laws of 1992 called the Omnibus Procurement Act, and I believe that McDonald's is headquartered in Illinois, and I was wondering how the corporate share of profits from this venture accruing to a company headquartered in Illinois would square with the what's been referred to as the Buy New York policy that's espoused in that Omnibus Procurement Act. I'd ask that you look into that. And lastly, I'd like to read from section 617.1 of the Act, paragraph D. It was the intention of the legislature that the protection and enhancement of the environment, human and community resources should be given appropriate weight, emphasis added, with social and economic considerations in determining public policy, and that those factors be considered together in reaching decisions on proposed activities. Accordingly, it is the intention of this part that a suitable balance, emphasis added, suitable balance of social economic, and environmental factors be incorporated into the planning and decision-making process of state, regional, and local agencies. It is not the intention of SECA that environmental factors be the sole consideration in decision-making. I'm sure you're well aware of this. I personally don't see how you can conclude that you can reach that balance given the testimony and evidence you've heard here tonight. Thank you very much.
One thing I noted in my introductory remarks, and I think it bears repeating, is that an important reason to do an EIS is community concern. And it is our awareness of the intense feelings this proposal has stirred in this community that tip the balance towards deciding to do an EIS. John Baker.
I will be very, very brief. I am a law professor, and the only thing that I want to say at this point is that it appears to me that the presentation that you have made tonight balanced against the presentation of, I live in Skodak, by the way, on Woodward Road, balanced against the presentation of our attorney simply does not hold up. It seems to me that you have not followed the rules, that you have not played by the rules. Your consultant's explanation of the 6 sites was sloppy at best. Your explanation for holding this meeting is sloppy at best. I think that you're going to have a very difficult time unless you start playing by the rules. And it's very, very clear that we are here as in a united front to oppose you unless you play by the rules. And even if you play by the rules, we're still here to oppose you. We might not win, but that's the way the game is played.
Carolyn Lippitz. And I find that admirable. Thank you.
I don't mean to be rude, but I have to talk. I'm one of the young people here. My name's John Ziak. I live on Woodward Road. I didn't move there. I was born there. Okay? Now you guys are talking about progress. You know what happens with progress? Does anybody know who George Clinton was? Okay, George Clinton was the first governor of New York State in 1777. This man said that this is a state of common people. It should be run by common people. We're in a room here with common people. But this man also said that the only good Indian is a dead Indian. And we know what the progress did to the Indian. It killed the Indian. Okay? Your progress is going to kill our neighborhood. The neighborhood that I was born in. You destroyed my grandfather's farm. You people aren't thinking with your heads. You're a bunch of bureaucrats. Excuse me. You know what a bureaucrat is? It's something that these people call you. But Frederick Taylor in the 1800s came up with a bureaucratic model, and that wasn't his idea. Just like Karl Marx with communism. Karl Marx is not a communist. He said that democracy and capitalists like yourselves make it so that poor people like us will never have control. You're not messing with a dummy here, okay? You're a bunch of no-goods. That's what you are, okay? Now back to Frederick Taylor. Frederick Taylor's bureaucratic model said that power should flow from the top of a company to the bottom of the company, but input should come from the bottom of the company back to the top. And you people don't listen to that, and you're not bureaucrats, because you're destroying that man's dream, okay? So don't even think of yourselves as bureaucrats. Now, another thing I would like to say, I didn't prepare for this. I just came up here because I didn't see any young people talking. Okay? And I'm not lying about anything. You people lie about everything. I am an anarchist, okay? Everybody's cringing now, but that's because they don't know what it is. I didn't say I was a homosexual, but that's okay. I could be a homosexual. Everybody can cringe at that. But an anarchist is a person who doesn't believe in what you people believe. An anarchist knows, because an anarchist is born. And he doesn't need to be told what is wrong or right. Your laws are a bunch of shit. This state is a bunch of shit. This country is a bunch of shit. I don't want to piss off any of the veterans. I'm proud of what the veterans have done, but they were doped by this country. Okay? Doped. Okay? Because what they were fighting for was bullshit. Okay? From people like you. Okay? There was only one war in this country that was any good, and that was a Revolutionary War. And it started in 1776. We all know that, and ended, so-called, in 1783 with the Peace of Paris, after Daniel Morgan had defeated Cornwallis in Virginia. Okay? But that's not, the war was only good for 1 year, for the revolution beginning. And after that, this country's gone to shit because of people like you. And excuse my language, ladies, but that's the truth. And I'm not here to beat around the bush, lie, or tell anything like that, because this country's going downhill. Your proposal, like Bob said earlier, is mindless. You're not thinking. You don't live out here. We live out here. I'm going to have to live here for the rest of my life. Okay? And trying to gather my thoughts here. Excuse me. Writer's block now. But anyhow, oh yeah, I came here tonight as a non-biased, objective observer. See, I can use big words too. I can run around this room with big words all night. And your big words, you can go out and get any dictionary. I learned in one class at college more than people ever learn in a lifetime. And if you don't like that, too bad, because that's the truth. Now I can come up with all kinds of words. I can come in here with data that suggests that there's a correlation between rapes and ice cream sales. I can give you all kinds of stats. You come in here with these maps look like some silly weather maps on TV that we don't even know what the fuck they mean. Okay? What the hell's that, a low pressure system moving in? Look at this shit. I've seen Girl Scouts put on a